Welcome, welcome, welcome to Agency Life. My name is Clodagh Higgins, and today we have live and direct from the UK, Martin Broadhurst. Martin, welcome so much to Agency Life. How are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me and tolerating me for this episode.
We always seem to gravitate towards each other when we're at any HubSpot event or HubSpot partner day, or even inbound with all the thousands of people. You and I always end up seem to having the chat. So of course I had to ask you to come on here and share your wisdom.
I think there's a general mischievousness about us.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some story or something when we do meet up. I'm like, what have you been up to? And you go, what have you been up to? I know. Kindred souls, kindred spirit inbound souls, I think. Tell us a little bit. You have a very interesting journey. So we're going to go way back in time, way, way back, from a factory floor of steel fabrication to this wonderful world of inbound. Give us the high level on how that journey evolved.
Those heady days of steel fabrication. Yeah, so I, going way back, dropped out of sixth form and just wasn't kind of academically minded. And in those kind of early kind of adult years, found myself just milling about, having those temp jobs that we all have, and the kind of didn't go to university either at this stage. So I was just kind of lost in the wilderness of weird roles, and then found myself without a job one day. And my dad said, and he worked in steel fabrication, he said, come work with me. I went and worked with him. Now it was one of those jobs where you'll be here 6 months.
Got it. Yeah.
5 years later.
Oh. Whoops.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of didn't really know how I was going to get out. Well, funnily enough, my job largely meant I was stood by a machine, pushing go, letting it run, and that would be like 20 minutes at a time. So what actually happened was I had a BlackBerry at the time. Don't know why I had a BlackBerry. I was hardly a high-flying businessman. But I had a BlackBerry, and I was very active on Twitter. So this is 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
Kind of early days of Twitter. And just started getting a community of people related to my various hobbies and interests, one of which was Derby County, a big Derby County fan.
Right.
And then I started a blog, and I started blogging about Derby County. And next thing you know, I'm getting invited to interview players. I broke a transfer story before the local press. And I was kind of, all of a sudden, and I'm bearing in mind, I'm still doing a 50-hour week on the factory floor, but I'm writing my stories on
You've
my
got
BlackBerry.
one finger on the go button, and the other hand, you got the BlackBerry going, using one finger. Got it. Okay, great visual.
And then, long story short, I ended up getting a decent following through football, and ended up getting voluntary redundancy. Now, at the same time, I'd just met a guy called Mark Saxby, and he used to be the news editor at the local BBC radio station. And I'd met him through an event, and he said he was going to set up a social media consultancy. It was a new thing to do. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, that's funny. I've been made redundant, and I was thinking of doing the same thing because I've got a community and I understand how to build community and understand content and all of that kind of stuff online. And we got together. We didn't really know each other at all. And we started a social media agency literally like 2 months later.
Wow.
And that was it. I was suddenly in the world of agency life.
Like, just like that. But that didn't last too long, or did it just evolve, or where did that kind of shift over?
2 years, and we did a lot of consultancy. We were doing some social media management, social media strategy, particularly on the kind of B2B side, but we were doing a lot of training. We won some contracts through the local Chamber of Commerce, and that was a great contract for us because it put us in front of literally hundreds, if not maybe 1,000 or so businesses across a huge patch of the country.
Yeah.
And it just opened so many doors. It was incredible. So we did that for 2 years. And towards the back end of that, I personally found that I wanted to because I've always been a bit of a tinkerer, I would say. I like to play about with different tools.
Not an Irish member of the traveling community, but somebody who tinkers and things. Got it. Okay, just it's a wide audience here, Martin. Wide audience.
It's good to clarify.
Good. Yeah.
So I was always playing about with things, and I kind of stumbled upon HubSpot and the broader inbound methodology, and was, I always saw that social media played a part and SEO played a part and what have you, but I was just like, the way that you bring all of this together is through inbound, and I wanted to do more of that and move beyond just social media.
Yeah.
So I made the decision that I was going to leave Status, and Mark still runs Status to this day. They're still going.
Way.
They're doing really well. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Mark, if you're listening, that's great. Well, I think you brought up something really important there that I think a lot of agencies forget, because they're not a traditional business. They're not bricks and mortar. They forget about the Chamber of Commerce. They forget about that side of business, that even if they just built a relationship, did a talk, attended a networking event once a quarter, it's because they're online, they think online. That's a really good thing. And I'd say Mark is still around because of that good start that he put in, the visibility, the relationships with other, I guess, more traditional type businesses. Do you think that'd be fair?
Yeah, I do think that the face-to-face side of going out and meeting people, it can't be overstated how important that is. You build those relationships over time. In fact, I was speaking to Mark recently, and he was saying how they'd actually won a project with someone who we first spoke to in the first 6 months of us setting up, and he literally won a project with them. It was in the past 12 months, certainly, and that was years later. They just came back around, and that. If you make an impression at someone, particularly and I think agency owners probably don't make enough of this. There are a few people I know that do it very well, but going out and presenting, giving a talk, sharing the expertise, telling people what's on the horizon with changes to Google, changes to Facebook advertising, how LinkedIn can be effective. This is something that is a massive missed opportunity.
Breaking it down for people. Because so much. So which came first then? Did you have the catapult opportunity with Dawn, or was it the other way where you left before? How did that overlap happen?
I left and was kind of, in fact, it was funny because I was kind of torn between wanting to do inbound as a kind of agency offer.
Right.
Or at the time, I was, and I still am, a big UFC mixed martial arts fan. This is way before the likes of Conor McGregor or anyone was on the scene.
A long time before. Jean-Claude, what's his name? John Patrice, what's the Canadian? I only know one. And then I remember Kimba, who died far too young.
George St. Pierre.
That's right, yes.
So it's around that time, and I was thinking about setting up an e-commerce site selling MMA apparel.
Right. Okay. One choice. Option A.
My wife wasn't totally convinced that
I wonder why.
It was a sensible idea, given that I'd never stepped foot in an MMA gym in my life, and my relationship with MMA was entirely through the television.
Okay. You hadn't even been to one of the live?
I've been to a few live events.
Okay, cool. Well,
I mean, like,
that was it. Not exactly qualified. A little bit more qualifications on the other side of things.
Yeah. So as I was discussing this one day with my friend Dawn, who's the owner and founder at Catapult, she said, "Well, rather than doing an e-commerce MMA site, before you do that, and I'm sure it'll be a runaway success, before you do that, why don't you come see us? We're currently using a lot of freelancers for digital marketing. Let's see if there's something we could do." So I went in, and the kind of long story short is, within a couple of months we got we were HubSpot partners.
Yeah.
And within a few months, I think it was within 4 or 5 months, we'd got gold partner status. We
Amazing.
were tiered, and yeah, we really went at it quite hard in
Yeah.
those days.
What you were early adopter with EOS as well when it came to that, with the entrepreneurial operating system. If anyone's interested, the book Traction by Dino Wickman is kind of how you get started with that. Something key to the success of the business, or what are your points about EOS itself as it worked for your agency?
Yeah, EOS was such an interesting journey for us. It was one of those. It's one of those books, and I would recommend everybody read it, particularly if you find yourself in a position going, something's not quite working, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
can't quite put my finger on it.
Yeah.
And then you just want to you want to level up, and it brings together all of these amazing tools. So I went to it was a talk by Marissa Smith,
Good old Marissa. Yeah.
Inbound. And I went away and I read the book, or I think I must have read like the first 3 chapters or something. It was just like, we are doing this.
Yes.
So I shared that with Dawn. Dawn read it again. 3 chapters in, she's like, "We're all in on this."
Even just the first 3 chapters. Yeah.
Yeah, because it just brings together. So it basically spells out all of these issues within your business,
That's
and
right. Yeah.
so it resonated so much with us. And yeah, we had a real journey with it as a business. It forced us to address some big issues.
Yeah.
And I guess in some respects, ultimately, it was how I ended up leaving Catapult, because
Yeah.
the core focus of the business changed.
Yeah.
And it gives you a framework within which leadership teams in particular can have those sometimes difficult and challenging conversations.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that you figure out really quickly. I remember us talking about that at that time, where it's like, okay, I'm in this role, that's my title, but this is not my role. These are not my responsibilities. These are not my numbers. And too often, I do this so many times with agencies. They find a job for a person, and they have a great company of great people doing jobs, but it hasn't been thrown in the EOS way, where it's like, let's write down all the things we do here, and let's group those things that we do into an actual role. And we can call it, Chief Emperor of Strategy. And nobody cares about the title. The title is not important. And it is really interesting when you stop building jobs around people. Not that you don't care about the people, but if people aren't doing what they're really good at and have a passion for it, which is something that you said was about having the right people, right seats, and the commitment to lifelong learning in like a community of learning, which is almost like a spin-off of what EOS dictates in that.
Yeah, the RPRS, right people in the right seats, was important. And when you introduce a system like EOS, there is change within the business. It is going to create some flux. And some people are going to get on board, and some people aren't going to get on board.
Yeah.
And we were advised at the start of the journey that there will be some people that leave. It will be a kind of natural turnaround. Some people don't like the structure. Some people embrace the structure. And we definitely experienced that. We saw some people leave. We saw some people come in and embrace the opportunity. And I say embrace the opportunity. It's not like the other people didn't embrace the opportunity. They just didn't like what it was presenting.
Those
but
things.
The core values. Just on
go on ahead.
The curiosity. We came up with the core values, and that was really important in terms of getting people in, knowing what it is that defines the business and who should work there and how you operate. So we had simplicity was a core value. I think, truth be told, we struggled with that one quite a bit. That was more, in hindsight, that was maybe more aspirational.
I was going to say, it sounds like an aspirational one, especially in a digital agency.
It was, there was complexity, and we weren't able to reduce to making things simple isn't simple.
Yeah, no.
Continuous curiosity, isn't it funny? I've been out of the business like 2 months, and already they have gone. But one of them was continuous curiosity,
Oh,
and
that's
that
good.
was a big thing. We had to stay on top of that.
Yeah.
We wanted people that had an appetite to learn new things, because that's where you sometimes uncover the magic for a client.
Yeah, by focusing on that learning, it's a huge part of it. But so what are the sort of things that you noticed in the resistance when you were talking about EOS? Because I'm going through this quite a bit right now, where the perception of what a level 10 meeting is to the rest of the company is it's almost like they don't. I've explained it and I've shared the videos and I've told them it's a business methodology, but somehow it's come across as a hierarchy, and it's like no, it's an output. Share with me some of the kind of resistance that you saw with your team with regards to the changes and EOS.
Yeah, I, I I think one of the issues is sometimes in the way that people implement. So, for instance, we ended up in such a way that, again, this goes back to not necessarily being as simple as we should have been.
Yeah,
We ended up with too many L10s, and
got it.
maybe that was a flaw of the way that we implemented. We weren't
Right,
mindful of the fact that we just created way too many layers. We were a team of 25 people,
right.
and we were having uh, probably too many level 10s. So that
Got it.
was something that I
That's
think
something to bear in mind. Yeah,
a bit of resistance. To be honest, I think most people got on board with the structure. People seem to like rocks more so than objectives, traditional objectives, and this is
yeah,
something that I've been aware of for a long time. Corporate objectives can shift within 12 months.
yeah,
So how can you expect one person to, you sit down on January 1st and say, right, December 31st, this is what you should have achieved.
yeah,
Now you get to the middle of June and all of a sudden they're kind of reviewing their objectives, going, well, that's not relevant anymore, that's not relevant anymore, that's not relevant anymore. So how can I pass my objectives? Whereas focusing on a 90-day
right.
cycle and
Yeah,
breaking that back as well, I think the kind of the having that vision, the VTO is so important, the vision traction organizer,
yeah,
which says to people, who are we? Why do we do what we do? Where do we fit within the market? And in 10 years, where do we want to be?
yeah,
And then you can break that back into the 3-year picture, the 1-year plan,
yeah,
and then into rocks. So everybody knows that, okay, I've got these rocks. And it's not, like I say, 365-day objective. It's, I've got this rock because I need to have completed these things in order for the team, the business, whatever, to be at this stage in a year.
yeah,
And we want to be at that stage in a year to be at this point in 3, and
yeah.
so on
And
and
they
so
can
forth.
see they're part of the journey because they've seen the whole path.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's tangible to them.
yeah,
It has a meaningful, it's not just oh, I'm doing this thing again. It plays a part in the bigger picture.
yeah. When EOS was coming in and when you were told you might lose some people, did it cross your mind that you would be one of those people that would eventually make a choice to say, perhaps not for me? Tell us about what happened there.
um, yeah, so uh, that was about understanding uh, the focus of the business and where the strength of the business was going to lie.
Yeah,
And we were told from the off that having a laser focus on one thing was going to be what was the real strength of the business.
yeah,
And we did a lot. When I first joined the business, we were an integrated marketing agency. It was
yeah.
very broad. We worked in a lot of different sectors. It was creative design, digital, video, you name it. And over that time, really, Catapult developed into kind of 2 core offerings, and it was business to business inbound marketing,
Right.
and also a guest experience a guest experience offer for the theme park and attractions industry.
Oh, wow. Very neat.
Theming, design, kind of
Yeah.
guest audits. They're very different things.
Yeah,
And
there's no common thread there at all, really, is there? And was that because of some of the experience in the business? Yeah,
yes,
okay. There we
absolutely.
go.
It
Yeah.
was experience in the business. It was the networks and some of the customers that Catapult had been working with for many years,
Right.
and that was a focus. And I think we you can't square that circle.
No.
And EOS, like I say, really allowed us to. It took a long time. It took a long time for us to get there, but ultimately where we arrived at was these these can't coexist um, under the same offering.
Right.
And now that we had I stepped away from the business, and Catapult was a very laser focused offer, and to be frank, is doing very well.
Yeah.
And I hope they absolutely crush it because they deserve it.
Yeah, so you raised a really good point. They will, because you contributed to so much of that infrastructure. But there does come a time. It's an evolution of business. It's an evolution of things. There does come a time where, if you're talking to an agency owner out there that is going through a couple of things, like what are the sort of things that you did in order to make that transition? Because you're all friends, everyone was amicable and there was no messes left. Like if someone's sitting there now going, I'm in a partnership. I work with a lot of partners. Some of them are husband and wife teams, so that's going to be another awkward conversation. If they want to leave, maybe they just want to leave the agency. They don't want to leave the marriage. But if someone is there right now, some of these relationships are friendships like yours. What would be kind of the key things that you think, you know what, I did that well, or actually I could have done that better when you were leaving?
I would say that just to be, and this is actually more of a rule for life rather than just in this circumstance, but just be open and honest, and quite frankly, don't be a dick. If you
Great
go,
philosophy.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's no more complicated than that, really. If you go into it and say, "There's no hidden agenda. This is the scenario," you can go
Yeah.
into it and be very open and honest, and know that there's no scheming or anything
No.
like that. Then it should work out for the best. I think where it comes unstuck, and I say this not having experienced this, but having seen this, I've now left 2 agencies,
Yeah.
and I'm still friends with.
Yeah. You said Mark was calling
Both.
you the other day. Like, that's
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
absolutely. I'm in touch with both,
Yeah.
and I think it's about being open and honest about your personal reasons
Right.
for whatever that may be, or just being honest about the situation. So
Yeah, like just holding that and going, what's the most important thing, that you maintain the friendship, right? So having that discussion and going, the most important thing is this, but I'm not happy, and then we're going to work on a plan to to do this. Or who knows, by sitting down and having a conversation, it could unlock, well, actually, what I think is you should be doing this other role. If someone is sitting in an agency and one guy doesn't want to talk to the other guy, and they're just kind of just working away. But really, if they sat down and went, are you happy? I'd rather be doing this. And they go, well, I'm not happy. I'd rather be doing that. Because that's agency life. You are constantly evolving. There's new opportunities coming out all the time, and you have to evolve.
absolutely, and I would say more generally, again, leadership teams just need to be open and honest. They need to be very clear in the way that they communicate, and
Yeah.
give themselves a proper forum to have those conversations.
Yeah.
And I think certainly what I found, my experience with EOS, was that EOS gives you those moments. It gives you that structure.
Yeah.
You have your quarterly management days with the quarterly agenda,
Yeah.
which also looks at things like the trust builders,
Yeah.
which is a set of tools that enables leadership teams to know that everyone's got each other's backs, and how to have healthy conflict
That's right.
between the team. I'm a strong believer in healthy conflict. A
Mm-hmm.
bit of friction
Yep.
is necessary, and
Healthy
that's
debate. We're reared on it in this side of the world, aren't we? We're well up for it. Yeah.
hmm. And that's I think that's key. So when you speak up, it's not people don't jump on you as and give you a hard time. In fact, I heard a story recently about a software company where the management is toxic, and it sounded awful. Where people, if there's a disagreement with the operations director, it's it's almost an instant dismissal. I've heard stories about staff members getting up out of a team meeting, leaving the room in tears,
Can you imagine?
and the directors saying, "Good riddance. We don't need them. That's not the kind of people we need here."
Wow.
Just like these horrible environment. No, that's awful. If you're in that environment, leave.
Like,
There's no reason to stay.
yeah, no reason for that at all. Super. So, there might be an agency owner out there thinking about, there could be life after this. You've done one of the coolest things that I just highly, highly recommend. In between jobs, take a few weeks off. How many weeks are you now?
I think I'm at week 12.
Week 12. Congratulations. That is fantastic. What could an agency owner who's thinking of leaving and taking some time off be doing with their days? What do you be doing with your days? Because you're a busy man now. You're not easy to get a hold of.
I know, it's funny actually how your diary soon fills up. Well, if they were so inclined like I am, they
Yeah.
might want to get involved in some sort of civic responsibilities.
Amazing.
It's one thing that I do, which has taken up quite a bit of my time, is I chair the Skills and Employment Board,
Yeah.
which is a local authority. It's kind of a partnership between the local enterprise partnership across the region, and then the county and the city's local authorities, and it brings businesses together, and we discuss what the needs of local businesses are in order to fill the skills pipeline. And we look at everything from kind of post 16 through to adult learners, NEET, so they're not in education, employment and training, the people that have been the kind of long-term unemployed and how you get them back into working. And yeah,
Nice.
that's taken up quite a bit of my time.
Wow.
Beyond that, I mean, if you're really wanting for things to do, get an Audible subscription and just hammer it. I have done that.
Have new friends like Michelle Obama as your new friend,
Yeah.
listening to stuff. And you've done some, you were involved in some teaching and lecturing before, right? So I think that's something I actually always tell agency owners they should be out talking and lecturing anyway, because you'll meet that student skill set, and it's good for recruitment. A little bit self-centered of me, but again, good for presentation. Those kids will ask you some good questions. But that's something you've done in the past, or you're still doing it now, right, from teaching and education?
Yeah, I teach. It's the equivalent to kind of undergrad level.
Okay.
Or I do digital strategy. It's a Chartered Institute of Marketing
Right.
course. So I'm a tutor for that, and I do some
You're
other.
teaching at the Chartered Institute of Marketing.
Well, I tutor one of their courses.
You tutor one of those courses, which is a long way off that factory floor and pressing the go button. Well done.
It is, yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, I'm quite pleased with that. Yeah, but in that, so while I was working at that factory, I started doing an open university degree. I did politics, philosophy, and economics, which.
Okay.
And I started that when I was at the factory, and it was a bit of a juxtaposition between my day-to-day life and my studies. That was a bit odd.
That's mad, but would lead to a lot of what's going on in your day life now. I've seen a few Instagram posts about where you're getting wound up by the current political situation in your country.
Yeah.
We are not going to talk about, because this is a not 4-hour podcast. But you definitely still have a passion for that, which I know. Some of the things that I've been asking agency owners around is just tell us a time where you had this massive aha moment in the business, where you just went, you were doing one thing and then it hit you, because those aha moments are really great knowledge bites for our agency owners out there.
Yeah, so for me, actually, it was, and I have touched on this already, it was when I was at Status, and we were very focused on the social media side of things. And I realized that there were new technologies and methodologies that were on the rise that I just wanted to be a part of. And I think really that I kind of been closed off to a lot of that. I've been so
Mm.
engulfed in what I knew, and I can't remember how I came across inbound, but it just opened up this new world. And I guess the advice there would be always be kind of horizon scanning
Okay.
for what's coming. Don't be closed off and say this is us and this is us forever.
Yeah.
If I can say anything for Catapult, and I can say a lot for Catapult, it's a great company.
Yeah.
That they changed so much. That, that was a business founded in 2001
Wow.
that was doing, you can go into their offices and probably still find VHS tapes that they were producing for customers way back then.
Right. Yeah.
And that, that's gone from brand design through to theme park theming and guest experience via inbound marketing and
Right.
cycling campaigns. And also, it's evolved
Yeah.
over time. And I would say, as an agency owner, don't be afraid to change and to embrace new opportunities. In fact, I remember speaking to you about inbound specifically and HubSpot probably a couple of years ago, and we had a discussion about inbound agencies just being open to more technology platforms than just HubSpot, because so many were just wedded to the one tool.
Yeah.
And there was a potential missed opportunity by not looking at other partnership programs.
Yeah, and looking at, well, gaining benefits from different complementary things. It's now called the tool stack. I think we had predicted that. We were talking about it. But yeah, to not be just singularly focused, because customers are going to want different things. And good point on the change. What I've noticed is that change isn't change now. It is 75% keeping what you have with an eye on the 25% that is going to change, and doing it that way. Like what I see a lot of agency owners do is coming in, especially post inbound. They're like fizzy Coke bottles coming into the office full of amazing ideas and implementing change straight away. And then there's a lot of change fatigue that happens because the rest of the company goes, here we go, another idea that isn't going to be finished. So the 75% of going, okay, this is what we do. We're doing inbound campaigns. We're doing them in this way, but with 25% of your eye vision on the future, on the horizon, to go, what tool are we going to use in AI that's going to come through this, like in the future? It's that vision. And if you are going to implement anything in an agency, you have to have a lot of checklists done before you present an idea, because you might be great. And as agency owners, we're super enthusiastic and going, I've got this great idea and I just built it at the weekend because, that's what we do. Meanwhile, your staff member is sitting there going, I do not want to change one more thing this week. So they're tired of change. So you have to do it in a way going, I've it done and this is how it works. And I'm thinking, what do you think? And more that kind of style is a little bit more important.
Organizational whiplash. Which is, I've experienced it and I've seen it happen a lot. It's an interesting trait, and I think it's an interesting trait of the visionary type of agency owner. And so many agency owners, I think, are visionaries. If anyone's listening and is unaware of the EOS visionary integrator relationship between people at the top of an organization, I would recommend reading the book Rocket Fuel.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Which is around that relationship, isn't it? Around the visionary. And it's just a similar thing I've written in my own book is around, it's actually a personality type as well, the entrepreneur versus employee. We're so comfortable flying around by the seat of our pants, making up things, doing this, that, and the other, and coming up with an idea and executing it. Whereas an employee wants security, wants stability, and they like finishing things. Whereas we leave a trail of destruction behind us sometimes, if someone doesn't come along and tidy up after it. So it's interesting. So organizational whiplash, love, great terminology. This is a real life podcast. One of the feedback that I had when I was doing some research on what people might want is to just hear some real life stories. So it hasn't all been, stars and fantastic things. There has been some mistakes, and that you talked about a couple of them spring to mind, mistakes that you go, and this isn't about the kind of what happened. It's more about what not to do for other agency owners. And there was a couple there. One of them you talked about the senior relationships that that really matter to clients. We could talk about that one for a start.
Yeah, that caught me out a couple of times, and I should have learned.
Right.
So often we sell in to senior teams as leaders within an organization.
Yes.
Or senior managers. We sell in to senior managers. Now, obviously, depending on the type of organization, if there's a handoff process where you're handing off an account to a marketing manager,
yeah,
and you still own the relationship with the managing director, then fine.
Yeah.
But where it's the senior person that is kind of the client side, where that senior member is still involved in the day-to-day, maybe not, proofing every blog post, for instance.
Got it. Yeah.
But kind of still with their finger on the pulse of the activity. Sometimes that handover process needs to be managed a little more carefully. And I think what I say I was certainly guilty of, and I saw happen a few times, was maybe not nurturing that relationship as strongly as I really ought to have. Not kept my finger on the pulse of the account.
Yeah.
Not had a regular check-in. And I think it might have been Marissa Smith as well, who said, you want to treat those senior staff as, whether it's a chief executive or managing director or whoever, you want to treat them as a friend. You want them to be your friend. And yes, you don't want to necessarily bring them in on every kind of status update in the week or status call, but take them out for dinner, for drinks once a month, because you want to be able to have that direct conversation with them when either, sometimes the agency isn't delivering the results, and you need to get to the bottom of that. Is that because actually client side, they're not giving you enough bandwidth there to be able to facilitate the ideas and the strategy? Or
and you want to, if you can have a chat with them and go, look, Mary isn't helping our account manager in here. She doesn't seem to be able to get the blog post over to us in time. Is everything all right with her? Is that, instead of having an absolute rip roaring row, there's no point. Is there anything you think you could have, do you think it could have been as simple as that? Just the odd dinner, the odd drinks, or is there anything else you think because it is a tough one, especially when agency owners are the salespeople in the beginning. My number one tip there is, as soon as you can get out of the sales process, get out of the sales process, and have a salesperson who isn't owning the business and emotionally involved in the business and able to make rash decisions standing in front of a client, is my kind of number one tip. So, but is there anything you think you could have done there then with that?
I think it would have been build in more of a handover process, and just make sure that it's just being mindful. It's no more complicated than that. Truth be told, you can try and overcomplicate these things and think, oh, what systems and processes could I have done? But just being mindful that you can't just kind of sell in the this is all the amazing stuff that we can do for you. Here's my account manager.
See you later.
See you in the never. Make sure you've got a 6-month process where you're on the status calls on a weekly basis. And then maybe it goes to fortnightly, then it goes to monthly, and then maybe you're doing your check-ins with the senior team. Because you want to make sure that you're delivering value, and that's just good housekeeping for your agency anyway.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I probably, if I was to think about it in a rhythmic kind of sense of the way, I love that idea, transitioning yourself out. First of all, you're on the weekly check-ins, and then you phase into the monthly. So if you were to look at it in a cadence, it's like, ideally your account manager should be doing a weekly update. End of the week might be an email and a quick call. A monthly report done on Zoom, walked through, or in person, depending on that. maybe the quarterly one is a quarterly presentation from the account manager back to you so that you're up to date with it. And then together you either go and do a Zoom call with the client, and maybe every second quarter you'll go and take them out for something, you know, or if they're too busy, send them a present or a chat or just something, you know, to go, we haven't had a chance to catch up, but enjoy this bottle of wine or something. So good, really good tip there. I really like that. That's really good. Another one that you'd said about picking, you have a story about picking good fit clients. how important that is.
Yeah, did I give a particular example?
Or is there any that come to mind? Or have they all just faded away?
No.
I don't know if you gave an example, but does a story come to mind of a bad fit client?
One thing, a useful tool that I got from doing the sales training through HubSpot was the prospect fit matrix. And this was a real game changer for us in the sales process, and it was understanding what a good account was going to be,
right,
and knowing, just spotting those early warning signs, because we've all had clients where it might not be their fault,
no,
but the relationship just is kind of doomed from day
doomed. Yes, yeah.
And if you know what to look for, then you can save everybody a lot of time and bother, because those relationships, trying to flog a dead horse from day one is you know, you over service, you probably under deliver, the client's never happy from day one. And if you know what to spot early, then you can just nip that in the bud at the sales process. We had a criteria in the end, which was, you must have, doesn't matter about the size scale of the business, you've got to have a dedicated marketing manager or someone that's dedicated to marketing. Right. Not someone that's you know, you could be a £10 million business where you've got a sales and marketing director.
Yeah.
Are you a sales director
or
does a bit of marketing and actually you farm out some of the, I don't know, exhibition stand design to someone that works in the admin team?
Right.
In which case, when I'm chasing you for, or when the team is chasing you for approval on something, it's way down your list of priorities.
Not going to get done.
so that's a bad fit.
That's a bad fit. Well, that's two completely different job roles, you know, like really.
So that kind of thing was a good one. Having never worked with an agency before, if you've never worked with an agency, was a big red flag again.
Good point. Yeah, you're only educating them how it all works.
Exactly, and you can have unrealistic expectations, all of that kind of stuff. And they might have worked with a freelancer or what have you, but that was important. But yeah, identifying and it's important. One clarification on that: identifying a good fit client. That's not identifying your dream client. I think that's where people might get that wrong, where they go, this is what we want them to look like. We want them to. Nobody's perfect. Like, move past the perfect world. You're basically putting in what is the base level. If anything, you're just defining what is your worst possible.
Yes.
Rather than your absolute best. It's what's the lowest. What's the minimum criteria we expect from someone? And as soon as you know that, you'll be doing yourself a favor by, as part and building that into your sales cycle. So when you're going through the sales process, when you're doing your BANT qualification, or you're doing that kind of exploratory piece in the sales process, you can work out whether they're a good fit or not.
Yeah, exactly. An exercise I've been telling agencies to do is just go back through your last 5 clients that you, maybe you do 3 that you liked and 3 that you didn't like, and talk about the personalities of the key people that you were working with. Because sometimes it's actually a personality thing. You know, they could be in totally different industries, but, you know, why did you get on with Jack? Well, he was proactive. He answered his emails. He responded in time. He understood our language. That's a persona that you want to work with. You know, as long as they have the money and the time and you're on the budget, you know, like that's someone you want to work with, you know, like someone who responds to emails in a timely manner, or little things. So I ask people to go back to the personalities of the people that you were working with. Forget the industry, forget what you were doing for them, and see if there's some common threads there. It could be a shared interest in Derby County. It could be God knows, but those things do make a difference.
It makes a huge difference on how you handle that account as well. And I was actually having this conversation with an old colleague actually, but we were saying about, you know, the accounts that you enjoyed working on it wasn't necessarily the industry. It could have been
anything,
manufacturing or recruitment, whatever. It was where you clicked with the people. You were on a level with that client. They understood. You had shared vision, shared goals. You all realized that the relationship, yes, it's a client and agency.
It's a professional working relationship,
but you're all in it together. And it's not that, you know, it's not master and servant.
Yeah, it has to be partnership, 100%. It has to, on both sides. Yeah, that's so cool. So we'll kind of, you know, we could be here all day, you and I, and I'm sure we have all day, you know, like I've done all my calls for the day, so we have the afternoon. But in the spirit of keeping it to a podcast within a reasonable length, I'm going to ask you a few questions now. You must have an amazing morning ritual right now, because you have, you know, 4 hours before you sit down and do your tasks. What kind of things are you doing where, you know, on a personal level for your routines and things that you would advise people on? Any tips on those?
On a day-to-day, I mean, stay curious is my personal philosophy. That's not just from, you know, that was a value at Catapult as an agency. That's how I operate. So I'm always striving to learn something, and I don't necessarily think it's about learning one thing every day. People talk about that kind of try and learn one new thing every day. No, just be open to new ideas, challenge assumptions. This goes back to what I was saying about social media marketing, and then breaking off into HubSpot and inbound. You know, be open to new ideas and want to learn new things. I even though I've got all the time in the world, I'm still getting up every morning. I'm still busy, and I'm still
getting to book you in. It might just see. I just check your schedule.
I know it is absurd.
You recommend Linda was one of the tips that you used.
So,
tell us more about that. Yeah.
I mean, you know, take your pick on any of these platforms, but I personally really enjoy LinkedIn Learning or lynda.com.
Yeah.
It's an incredible development tool. Whether it's the kind of, I want to get better at photography skill, or it's, I want to do better performance management. I want to have better time handling. So short. You can download them on your phone. You can play them as podcasts. Really, really useful platform. Yeah. So I like that a lot. But also, I mean, there's podcasts everywhere, isn't there? There's stuff like this. Tune in to interesting people telling interesting, real world stories about their day-to-day experience. What's challenged them? What's pushed them to work better? And
some variety and different things that you're going, I wouldn't normally listen to that. You know, I think the consumption with podcasts is one of the reasons I reignited this one. I just find myself listening to them making dinner or in the car, up and down the road. It's a bit of company, to be honest. It's like having the chats. Do you know what I mean? It's like it is having someone having the chats in the background. But also, I used to be an amazing reader when there wasn't a picture of me from the age of 5 to 12 without a book in my hand. And then I just stopped because it's something that dropped off, and it's disappointing. But Audible has just been an incredible way to do that for me to do that. Speaking of one of the books that you kind of accredit, one of the things I'm asking agency owners, because and our previous agency owners, is it is a very all-consuming business. Like it can be just all the time taken over, and it really can impact your relationships. I'm asking people, what sort of tips do you have when you're living with your partner? You weren't an agency couple. I stumbled across loads of them, by the way. Can you imagine? Nuts. And they're fantastic nut bags. It's great crack talking to them. But imagine you were talking
I don't know how they do it.
I don't know how they do it, but I have great podcasts coming up about how they do. So it's great. I'm sure I'm going to have a row on one of them. It's going to be amazing. We'll add to it. But you were saying one of the books that you were reading was Radical Candor, and you were very lucky to have your wife is very entrepreneurial, interested as well. Like, she is a career-minded person. So talk to me about how you managed those difficult times in your relationship when you were in the agency.
Yeah, so we both worked, it was long hours. She's public sector, works for a local authority, but career-minded, long hours, and it can be stressful, particularly when you're both in the midst of it. And obviously the kind of peaks and troughs of our working lives, you don't always peak at the same time. And
hopefully, it's not all crazy that's down, that you're crazy, they're not.
But we found that a really simple thing is, getting up at the same time, and I'm still doing this even while I'm a man of indulgent leisure.
I love you put house husband, love it.
I'm still getting up at the same time, cooking breakfast, we're having that together, and we use breakfast as a sounding board. I know couples who never talk about work. They come home from work, and there might be a 10-minute kind of window of, how was work today, honey, blah 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 blah, and then it's kind of let's crack on with life. We speak about it a lot. We do talk about it, and we share insights. She works in communications and press relations and media, like that. So there is an element of overlap, the kind of comms and marketing space. But also the kind of leadership and management stuff. When you're a line manager, how do you deal with different personalities, different people issues? And we quite honestly, we just talk a lot. We have very open lines of communication and say, oh, what's grinding your gears today? And you can just tell. And we bounce ideas off each other. And
that's incredible. I love the start of the day is a great one, before it's all too much at the end of the day. Like, to start the day off going, what are you going into? What are you heading into?
Which in some respects is even worse, because it's like, how terrible is this thing going to be today?
Well, it's yes and no. It's kind of like setting you up for going, what are you going to get when she comes back in the door? And vice versa, when you're back out there again. I don't know, it's something, it's worth a try. I think this is all just giving some tips to people, I have worked with couples in the past. Usually by the time I get to them, we're at some interesting stages of where things are with the business. But I think it's worth trying those things, going, let's try a cup of coffee in the morning, talk about what's going on, but let's try that,
I think if you're working together, it's a different situation, isn't it? Like, that is I applaud those that do it. I think I would have been divorced or jailed. They are the only two possible outcomes there.
I know. Yeah, it's such an intense world, and then to put that in, but there's some sturdy bunch, which is pretty cool. Out there today, can you imagine there's a HubSpot or a software as a service, any of the Marketos or the Pardos, they are signing up an agency, maybe a new agency into the digital marketing world, the inbound world, the tech stack, growth stack, whatever it's being called today. So imagine someone's just starting out. Can you imagine that? Like, this is their first week, What kind of advice would you give to an agency coming into this world today?
I would say, folks, remember that you're not selling the technology.
Brilliant one. Yes. You're not leading with that. Yeah. No. I used to say, because when I worked in HubSpot, I was the first point of contact after the salesperson. So the salesperson would sell it to the agency, and then I was the consultant. And my first line was, congratulations, you've purchased HubSpot. Now stop talking about it. Nobody cares. And they would be like, what? No, I want to tell everyone my great purchase. And I was like, nobody cares. Now, let's go and do some work on your own business, and then we can talk about it afterwards. Great point.
It is so tempting to do. So don't lead with that. Remember, you are selling services. That is the core, and understand what you do and do not do. I spoke to or I'm aware, I didn't actually speak to them direct, but I'm aware of an agency that was a full service digital agency. And they went through the EOS process and they found their niche, and they stripped back and went entirely on link building and blogger outreach. Everything else they just killed. They just did that, and they went from something like 20 staff down to about 5, and then back up to a comfortable 10. And they found what they did and excelled at that thing.
Yeah.
So I think knowing that is important. Understanding what you do and don't do.
Yeah.
Because it can be tempting to organizational whiplash. We've already referenced it. Ooh, shiny thing.
Another shiny thing.
We're all kind of magpies in that.
Oh, so true.
And another thing I would say is, well, actually, it goes back to my previous point. Learn what a good fit customer is. That will take time for you to understand, particularly when you're moving from selling projects to retained work. If your agency has been built around doing web projects and branding projects and design projects, and it's been very ad hoc, and you're moving into the world of retained services, that transition is going to be tricky.
Yeah.
And getting your systems and processes is enough of a worry. Operationally, that's going to take some time to figure out.
Yeah.
But more importantly, work out what is a good and bad fit customer, and be prepared to sack the bad fit customers. Don't hang on to clients just because it's billing. Yeah. And it can be tempting to say, this person is giving us X many thousands of pounds per month. We can't afford to lose them. The reality is, a lot of the time you can't afford to keep them
either. Yeah, you should go out and get better fit. I just put my phone up there just to look on Google. Prospect, tell me what it is again, because if I can find the link, I'll put it in the show notes. The Prospect Fit Matrix.
Prospect Fit Matrix.
Yeah, I'll see. Prospect Fit Matrix, HubSpot. It would be, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, it was a HubSpot tool.
Yeah, it might. Maybe if I give the link here, it might just come up. There's some blog posts about it. So yeah, it looks like it's still available. Oh, and good old Impact. God, I love them. Hey, they got one up for aren't they great?
Of course.
Good old Impact. Nick Sal would have been like, hang on, I can do that. So I can put it in the show notes, but people can go and just look that up. A great tip. I loved it. So we spoke about Twitter very early on. Are you still up there now, live chatting away? Where would people find you if they wanted to drop you a line and say hi?
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at MP Broadhurst. That's Martin Peter Broadhurst, not Member of Parliament, which it's just like, no, it's just my initial.
I know everyone thinks I'm a queen, but then
turns out not true.
There you go. And so are you looking forward to the next phase, or will we find you there on Twitter and stay tuned to what you're going to do next?
Yeah. So,
shall we do that? It's like the next installment.
I'm going to be joining it's a internal communications and performance management SaaS company called Staff Circle. I'll be joining those guys in April. So I've got some projects I'm wrapping up between now and then, and looking forward to it. I'm going client side.
That's so cool, and it's it would have been an area like we've I think that's something we've both been interested in, is the human side of things. It's how I ended up working with Grow It and talking more about the humans and the people and the personal development and all of that side of things. So that sounds like a really interesting company, something to get your teeth into.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated because I think employee engagement is so important. Everything from that initial onboarding of a member of staff, particularly with remote workers in large organizations. How do you keep someone that's out on the road? I don't know, they're a service engineer that very rarely comes into the office, and how do you keep those engaged with the company? How do you keep them loyal? How do you keep them attuned to where the company's heading? and that's what staff circle's all about. It's about making sure that any member of staff, whether they're out on the road in the van on their own or they're in an office working with everybody else, they hear the same thing. They have the
Wow.
same communication.
Yeah. That they're not being excluded because they're not in the office.
Exactly.
That sounds like something a lot of agencies who have remote staff need. So let's, right, because I just one of the first podcast interviews was an agency in Chile, husband and wife team, and they have Spanish speaking staff in about 6 countries. Incredible. And some of them they have not met physically yet. They haven't organized like a team building event. So we will stay very tuned to Staff Circle and find out what that's going to be like. Martin, an absolute pleasure. The only thing missing was a drink, do you know? But sure, the next time I will miss you not seeing you at the HubSpot events. Maybe you'll wangle your way over to inbound. You just won't be on the partner track. You'll be on the other side.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's been
a pleasure. By the food trucks.
You'll be on the food trucks. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Martin. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, and I look forward to tuning into future episodes.
Bye-bye.